If you enjoy truthful and heartfelt conversations to inspire you to become a better version of yourself, Empowering Stories will help you. Hello, Penny. How are you?
I'm really well. It's lovely to be with you, Anna.
I'm so delighted to have you in the program, Penny, because I met Penny through a group that she's going to tell us something about later on, I hope. And the work that she's doing and the work that she's done before is absolutely amazing. If there's a person to show what resilience is, that is Penny Power. She has a fantastic resume and loads of achievements that I'm going to invite her to tell us about. But if she's here, it's not so much because of the achievements that she's got, but because of the heart, which is so massive. It's about serving others, it's about loving herself, it's about loving her kids unconditionally, it's about fighting for the family, it's about fighting for ideals and go through them and to them, no matter what the circumstances are. And believe me, circumstances have been not so nice. Penny, tell us.
Well, from any point onwards, tell us. Well, it's wonderful.
From whenever.
Yeah. So it's lovely to be here. And I understand that the people who hopefully are listening in are people who may be going through some adversity themselves, or they've been through it. Like all of us, we have vulnerability. So I'm hoping that I can give some thoughts here. My thoughts are always, they're never academic. They're never from reading a book. They're from life experiences. And I suppose that's the joy of our life, isn't it? Is that we want to know that we lived a life. Whenever that end of our life comes to, we want to know we've lived it and fought against all the challenges and learned from it. In fact, that brings to mind when I was a little girl, I was about 8, and I was sitting in my bedroom, and I'm 56 now, so I was brought up by parents who, my mum's passed now, but my father's in his 90s. And it's called The Greatest Generation, the generation that fought through 2 world wars. They were very much brought up to believe in duty, you know, when they went through evacuations and all sorts of challenges themselves. And they were taught not to complain and not to share your emotions. Look at what other people have been through. Look at what your father went through when he went through the First World War. So as a child, our parents were very encouraged not to share their emotions. And I think that for a lot of people, my generation spread through into our generation, the baby boomer generation, where I think we had very dutiful and very loving parents, but they didn't necessarily show it. And I think there's a lot of benefits in that, but at the time it probably didn't feel like it, in that it's made us resilient, but also made us very self-coaching and managing our emotions very strongly, and made us very independent people, which, you know, as I might share later, you know, independence can be an overdone strength because it makes us hard to ask for advice and help from others. But as a child, I remember sitting in my room crying my eyes out and thinking, gosh, you know, whoever gets my soul next time, I hope that they're I learn a lot now so that their life is easier. And it was something I wasn't spiritual as a child. It just was a sort of an instinct I had about there must be a reason why I'm working things out in my head. So, and I think that has been one of my drivers in life, is always just to embrace every piece of lessons and adversity, and work the way through it. Doesn't mean to say, you know, some of the adversity didn't damage me deeply at the time. But you know, I've never wanted to become a victim of it. I think that's an important word to me. And I don't think many of us do want to. Once you become a victim, then it's very hard to be empowered. You know, as a victim, you have to fight your way through. So yeah, I enjoy life's experiences, and there have been very many wonderful ones and some very difficult ones as well.
Yeah, what I see here is the story. We all go through the stories that our parents pass on to us, or teachers, or religion, or whatever it is. They pass those stories on to us, and then we believe they are true. They become our beliefs, and we start living from those beliefs, and they are no longer applicable to us.
Yeah.
In my case,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Spain, is the same thing. My parents were born when the Spanish Civil War in the 30s. Well, my father in the 20s, my mother in the 30s. They lived through all the poor and Franco and all that. And their beliefs, they were passed on to us, baby boomers as well, but they were no longer applicable. And becoming aware of that, as you say, is the first step,
It is, isn't
isn't
it?
it?
Because I mean, my children are now in their 20s, and I often say to them, you know, my values are my values, my beliefs are my beliefs. They don't need to be yours, you know. And
Yes.
I think it's quite an interesting sort of liberation when you just, you know, you can still respect your parents massively, but when you realize that you've got a different filter on the way that you want to live your life or be, and your belief systems, as you say, I mean, the belief systems are incredibly powerful, and understanding how they've been laid down so that you can then decide whether you want to embrace them or bring in other ones is a very important part of moving through adulthood. And you know, I work with a lot of people in their 50s in business who still have belief systems that are quite damaging for them, you know. That can
Yeah.
be around their self-worth, their self-belief, you know, how they value themselves, how they allow other people to treat them. You know, our belief systems are very powerful when you actually start to unpick them and look at how they've been formed. Mm.
Yeah. How are you were able to look from the outside towards yourself and become aware that, well, that's not my belief, that's my mother's, that's my father's, that's society, that's World War One,
Yeah.
that's culture.
Yeah.
How do you?
I don't know whether there was a single moment. I just always know that my mum used to say I was far too sensitive, and you know, that was, I mean, she was a really great woman. I don't want to look like I'm criticizing her. As we've established here, it's a different generation. But
Yeah.
so I grew up as a child thinking I was too sensitive. You know, I was oversensitive, and I suppose there came a point at
That's
which I thought, I'm going to own that. That's who I am, and that is one of my unfair advantages in my life, is my level of sensitivity, because it gives me empathy. It drives my love, and it drives me as a person. And without that unfair advantage, I wouldn't be who I am. And it might have meant the world maybe feels a bit tougher at times. And I suppose the next level of awareness when you go through that is, well, what is my character, and what is my personality? And I think more recent realizations is how my character has been formed, and whether or not there are areas of my character that are working against me and making life harder than it should be. So my personality is formed. I wouldn't try and change that. I don't know whether you can actually change your personality, but there are traits in your character that you can change. You know, so you know, I am terribly conscientious, for example, you know, to a point of never wanting to let anyone down. And that's not a realistic way to treat yourself, because we all have flaws. We can't help everyone. You know, I'm highly agreeable. I want to say yes to people when they ask for help. But again, if you add that to conscientiousness, that creates a lot of overwhelm. And I remember talking to someone through my life once. I had a chat with somebody who was actually a business coach, but she wasn't coaching me, but we had a really good glass of wine and a chat. And when I went through my life and talked about different things, she said, you're never angry. How come you never talk about being angry? You always seem to have so much empathy with the other person. And I said, yeah, no, well, I wear that as a badge of honor. I don't ever want to feel anger. And she said, but anger actually protects you. It's really important. Anger doesn't mean you have to deflect it outwards, you know, and send it out into the world, but it is a trigger in your limbic system of your brain that helps you to know that something's not right for you. And when she said that, I thought that's really interesting. And then she said to me, I bet you feel anger if your children are badly treated. You would feel anger. And I said, yeah, I would. And she said, well, you've got to allow that feeling in your brain, because you've not got the boundaries and you're not protecting yourself against people. You're constantly trying to adapt to other people. That word, unconditional love, is a really interesting one, because she actually challenged me on whether it's right to unconditionally love everyone. And she said, I really think the only people you should unconditionally love is your children. And I thought, yeah, well, because otherwise you're allowing anybody to treat you in such challenging ways and constantly take it. And I think that had been an aspect of me. But then that started to play on, well, how do I handle conflict, and how do I access an assertiveness around my character that's not natural to me, because I'm not naturally assertive. And it doesn't mean to say I can't be bossy and controlling at times, but I'm not naturally assertive so I will avoid conflict. I want to go towards harmony. So these are all things about our character that I learned. Equally, this subject of boundaries. When somebody said to me about 4 years ago, Penny, do you have any boundaries around you? And I immediately thought of my garden and fences, and yeah, I've got boundaries around our house. And she laughed at me. I said, no. She said, boundaries around you. I said, I don't know what you mean. And she said, just boundaries that say, actually, you can't cross over that, because when you cross over that, you're not treating me well. And all these things are very interconnected, aren't they? Understanding your own values and belief systems, and then your character, and then whether or not you have the right defenses inside you to handle difficult people and difficult situations. And then that goes all the way back to, what are your core values? And if my core values are family and love, and I had found myself in a place where I built the academy, which was this social network, the first in the world. It was built from love. It was not built from ambition. It was built to support and love people and help people to feel that they matter and reduce loneliness. But it became this huge entrepreneurial experience that took me into a business world. And my values started to get shattered, because my values started to be driven by scarcity and fear and saving a business and all of those things. And it's a very interesting thing to me, that, because when you go into business with a sense of purpose, but then the business needs take over, it's very hard to remain congruent to why you started a business, for example. And that's the challenge I went into for 14 years. But fortunately, through self-discovery, I've come all the way back round, and I'm now living back to my core values, with people, which is lovely.
I was reading about your experience. Actually, I have your book here, and you just can't put it down. You just can't put it down, because it's just amazing, Penny. I want to thank you from here for being so open and honest and vulnerable and real. So many times we hear these personal development stars or gurus or people in the internet saying, oh, just follow your heart and go for it and just keep trying and work hard and you'll get it. Well, hell no, it doesn't happen all the time. And sometimes I have these discussions with other people and I say, it doesn't happen. It's not just about following your heart. Your heart might be in the right place, but then you need a team, and all the skills should be put there. You put all the skills there, and you put the heart, and you put the hours, and you put the money, and you put the effort. Still, maybe it doesn't get to where your original vision was. However, when you come out of it, you look back and you learn very valuable lessons that talk about you, don't they?
Mm. Yeah.
Would that be your experience with the Academy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's really intuitive of you. Yes. I mean, I think, I mentioned I'm in my 50s now, 56, 3 kids that are independent, living independently, got their own businesses. My drive, I think your drivers can be quite blurred in life through different stages of your life. So if you look at your 20s, your drivers are very much about your identity and, who am I in the world, and how am I going to make my way through the world, and what's my career, and who are my role models. Then you go into your 30s and 40s, and often those drivers are very much about, who are these little people that I'm now very responsible for, to educate them, to feed them, to keep a roof over their head. And so in a way, your drivers are through them, and you're putting everything you can into them. Because I do think the most responsible thing I've ever done in my life is to bring 3 people into this world. And I wanted to make sure that they were loved and balanced and were going to contribute to the world in the right way. I want them to give more than they receive in the world. And so my drivers were very much about how we're going to balance that. And when I came up with the Academy, I was desperately wanting to be at home with the children all the time. And this idea of connecting people using the internet was going to enable me to do that. But it was, it was a very hungry beast, the Academy. And fortunately, although I came up with the idea, it was Thomas that made it what it is and what it was, because he put so much of his soul and brain and love and everything into it. And he was the one that could travel around the world and build it, while I sort of stayed ambassadorial and managed the culture, and it kept me close to the children. But we brought in a CEO because I would have sacrificed my values as a mum if I was the CEO. And from a skill set point of view, I would have been the right type of CEO. I had left the business world in the corporate sense as a sales and marketing director of a company. I had business skills. But it would have conflicted with my values as a mum. So I was constantly torn between this business that we loved and could see how much we needed to nurture it in order to nurture the members, but also to make sure that this business didn't fail, but also with the demands of having 3 children and wanting to love them. And I'm sure any mum or dad listening to this will know exactly what I'm talking about here. It's not unique. Yeah.
Putting my
so
hand up.
Now when the Academy came to a crashing end, leaving Thomas and I £2.5 million in personal debt, we didn't want to go bankrupt, because I would never be able to hold my head up high as somebody who had built a business, and then the money that we had used to try and build it, if I had just not paid that off. Thomas and I were determined. So it took us 5 years to pay that money down and keep the kids at their schools and everything. So we worked extremely hard. But the biggest thing was that where was our identity in all of that? And I remember being interviewed and asked to do a speech about how do you recover from failure. And I was very comfortable doing that talk. It was only 3 years ago. I did it in a tech hub in London. To lots of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. I was very comfortable doing it, but it was very interesting because they gave this label of being a failure, and I mean, I'm happy to own whatever label anybody wants to give me, but it did make me think deeply afterwards. Actually, am I a failure? Because that was the most confronting way of somebody saying you didn't succeed. And then I started thinking, but I didn't fail, because we did build this business over 14 years and we created a legacy of people who really, truly understand how to use social media and networking for what we believed it is, which is friendship and support and caring. So that's not a failure. So where did the failure lie? And I thought, actually, if I compare it with my values, I haven't failed, because my values are always about my family and love. And I hadn't failed at that. And so it was a very interesting way of suddenly thinking, well, I can't say I failed. I'm not a failure, because to my true values, I have done the right job. I've maintained my marriage and I've maintained our children and brought them into the world in the way that I hoped that we would. So I think this is where values, we get wrapped up in ambition and drivers through the desire to bring our children up, to educate them, do all these things. But at the same time, I think we have to regularly look at how is that conflicting with our values. And I think as soon as we are in conflict, that's when the real pain happens. And I know there are a lot of people in organizations that aren't living by their values in the organizations they're working for. And that must be very hard.
Yeah, what you're saying is so interesting, because you're talking about this failure. You accepted it, you just embraced it, but that was the other person's label. because your success was there. Your success was your family, your children, your husband. That was where your attention was, where your energy was going to. And that was the main thing. And the more important thing, what have you taught your kids and your husband about all the experiences that you went through? Well, that I am here for you guys through thick and thin. And this is how I'm going to show it to you. So it was a bit of an expensive course of 2.5 million, but it was a course, wasn't it?
Yeah, you could definitely put it down to that. And, you know, that came to an end when we were 2012, 48. Is that right? Yeah, 48 years old. You know, we still had a good life left in us, but there has to be recovery time. And some people listening to this might be going through adversity now with their business or their job. You do need to allow some recovery time. And I think acceptance is a very important part of that. And that was really helped to me through a psychologist, taught me about the power of acceptance. And that's not in a spiritual sense. She actually explained to me neurolinguistically, well, I can't think of the word, but, you know, actually what's going on in your brains when you accept. And that was an important process. But to go through acceptance, you also have to go through the real, true emotion of what you went through. So I went through something called EMDR, which is a form of psychological support. And I think it must be a form of type of hypnosis, but it was with a doctor, a psychologist, to really take myself into, there were 16 individual traumas that I needed to unwrap that we'd gone through over a 5-year period. And through doing that, you go up a curve of emotion like a child does, so that when you get to the top, you've really properly embraced that emotion, and you're really at that deep set of crying that we don't really often allow ourselves to do. And then when you get to the top, you start to filter down. And the good thing about that is it moves from the first part of the curve going up is your short-term memory. Your brain, once it accepts, it goes into your long-term memory. So it's still there. It's still part of your story, your lessons in life, but it's not front of mind like a full glass of water that can easily overflow.
Yes.
And that was very powerful. And the thing about understanding acceptance is you then also have to say, in order to accept, what am I resisting? And that's a very interesting process as well. And so, you know, and we resist lessons in life, we resist life experiences, because it's extremely painful to accept some things and say, okay, I'm going to lay that to rest now. That's happened. I accept it. I'm no longer resist it. I'm going to go through the emotion of it, and then I'm going to move forward. And I think not many people really understand the importance of that. A lot of people think, which I did, was I'm resilient because I'm just able to put that in a drawer and close it and not allow it to hurt me. But that monster still exists. It's still there.
Yes.
And so when you pull it out of the drawer and you let that monster attack you almost again, and you go through the emotion of what you've gone through, that you didn't deal with at the time, because it's interesting the way the body and mind reacts when it's in trauma. You know, when it's initially in trauma, it is a superpower. It's incredible. I mean, it's a painful story to tell, but if I think about, and it's not my story to tell, it's Hannah's, but she allows me to tell this because she wants to help others. But, you know, 4 years ago at 5:30 in the morning, I got a call from a hospital in Geneva, and Hannah had gone skiing, and she'd been away for 3 days. And I got that horrific call from a hospital thinking, oh God, what's happened to her? And it was to say that she'd been brought in by police and ambulance because she'd been abducted and raped, and when she was 24. And she and I, mostly her, became a superpower during that process, and Thomas and the boys, our boys. As a family, we united, and she was just phenomenal and led the path for us all to be phenomenal for her. Now, if I had been told, or if I had had the imagination of it, like if I was watching a drama on television, and I would say to Thomas, turn the television off at that moment when a policeman knocks on the door of a parent and says their daughter's been raped. I'd say turn it off, because my imagination couldn't go there. The fear would be too great. That happened out of the blue, and we became superhuman in it, because most of us in a trauma are phenomenal. We're survivors and we find our way through. However, those traumas sit with us in our short-term memory until we properly deal with them, and it takes a while for us to realize, now I'm ready to deal with it. And I think these form belief systems, these form all sorts of things, and they certainly fill that cup up to the top. So it's really amazing when you go through proper therapy. And I think a lot of people don't think they need it, because they say, I'm very mentally healthy. But there's a very big difference between mental health and mental fitness. In the same way, there's a very big difference between physical health and physical fitness. When you think about Owen, he goes out running, he stays physically fit. The two of you are fit people. You live in a great place physically. You can go for beautiful walks. You probably eat very well. Every day you're thinking about your physical fitness. Not all of us think every day about our mental fitness and work with it. And that was a very important lesson in life. And I think a lot of people now are living in that fear because they don't realize how amazing they will be when they are in a situation. And that's one of the messages I want to give to people is, don't fear adversity, because you will grow through it and you will be a superhuman when you come through it. So, and just actually looping back to when I said about the fact I wear the pride that I don't have anger. Of course, that happening to Hannah triggered a sense of anger in me. And people that I met used to say, oh, you must be so angry. You must want to go and kill those boys. Da, da, da. And I said, it hasn't actually come into my mind one bit, because what I've got to access more than anything is love. If Hannah had any anger around her or any sense of anybody being angry, that wouldn't heal her. And so whilst I knew that there was a part of me that wanted to protect, there was nothing I could do. Those guys were in another country. The police wanted to brush over it because it was done on a ski resort. And, whilst we did a reconstruction, my daughter and I, going back past to try and see if there was any DNA. As soon as we flew back, there was no more interest in it. And anything that was put up on a Facebook board for Morzine, which is a ski resort, was taken down because they didn't want it to damage the tourism industry. I knew I wasn't empowered to do anything with any anger, but what I was empowered to do is to love. And that's what our family did, because that's our biggest values that we have. Yeah,
you didn't feed that beast of something that was not pleasant to go through. And you would have had two options. One was, let's face it this way and let's go for them. And that anger would have built in you. And Hannah would probably be sick still now, would have all that in her. Which
absolutely.
You metabolized it somehow.
Yeah. They were in the past,
Yeah.
And so
what a powerful
the healing
lesson.
Healing can take place. So, I think that's actually, I'd love to find this beautiful saying. I wrote it down because it was Oprah that said this, and I was listening to something. I've got it written down on a thing. Forgiveness is giving up on the hope of what the past should have been. Isn't that wonderful?
Beautiful, beautiful.
Forgiveness is giving up on the hope of what the past should have been. So, the past can hold you as a prisoner. And I think if we don't go through a process of acceptance and stop resisting stuff, and we can just stay in that place of not even forgiving ourselves, and I think I went through a process of not even forgiving myself for the fact that the Academy didn't succeed. When it was the first social network, Reid Hoffman that launched LinkedIn was on our network, it was this constant feeling, because we let down 650,000 members when we failed as well. So there was a feeling of responsibility, of not forgiving myself, of doubting myself, of asking myself, could I have done more? But as that saying says, you've got forgiving yourself. Forgiveness is about letting go of the past and the hope of what it should have been. And I think people talk about compare and despair. So I'm going to compare myself with somebody on Instagram, and I'm despairing because I'm not as good as them. But sadly, a lot of us compare ourselves with our former self. And that's the worst form of comparison. Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
or
exactly.
with the story that we made up in our head that this should have been this way.
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ourselves or people close to us, like our parents. My father should have loved me this way. He should have told me that he loved me. He shouldn't have been so harsh. And if we carry on with those stories into our adulthood is not helping anybody, starting by us.
Absolutely.
You're so wise.
So wise. That's life, isn't it?
Not everybody knows it intellectually like you do.
Yeah.
Some people know all these things intellectually, but you practice it and you can see, anyone can see that it goes through you. It oozes out from you.
Oh. Well, I think
that
comes from, you know, when we are comfortable to validate ourselves and not look for that external validation. You know, there's this gap between people's identity of what they want the world to see and their truth. And I think once you close that gap, it's very powerful, because nobody can tell you you're wrong for being yourself. You know, it's very liberating. You know, it's liberating. So, and the wonderful thing is, when you are yourself, you attract beautiful beings into your life that resonate with yourself. You know.
Yes. That being said, there would always be haters in the internet who didn't embrace their own failures or their own expectations. And they put all the hatred into the internet, normally from an anonymous source, and they hurt so much.
Yeah,
I know
they do.
that it's their own hatred, but why?
That's
How
horrible.
did you overcome that? I really admire you for having overcome that and have the guts to say, I'm starting again.
Yeah.
Because this is who I am, and nobody is going to bring me down. No freaking body. Whatever they say, this is who I am, and I'm proud of it, and I will keep doing good. You're not going to beat me. I so admire you for that. Well,
I'm sure, you know, there are lots of people that do that. I think that's the wonderful thing about getting older. I love getting older. I think if we're privileged enough to get older, and I lost my brother far too young. I lost my niece, my sister's daughter, far too young. You know, I've seen over the last 5 years some real sad experiences. So I love the fact that I bless the days that I get older. I see so many of my friends worried about their lines and getting older. I think, no, I just love it. I love it. Yeah, exactly. I just think what a privilege to get old. I think part of the path is also taking personal responsibility for what has happened to you in your life. I think, you know, some people, their egos potentially want them to blame somebody else for things that have happened in their life. And our ego is there to protect us. You know, it's there to give us strength sometimes at times. But an overinflated ego or an underinflated ego can be very difficult for us. You know, an underinflated ego often means people are shouting about how brilliant they are all the time online, and you have to feel sorry for them. An overinflated ego will shout about how brilliant they are online. It's, you know, and but an overinflated ego will also look to blame others for everything. And I had to go through that process as well. You know, beginning of Academy going down, I wanted to blame the stock market. I wanted to blame the bank that nearly bought us. I wanted to blame the bank that loaned us money and took it away from us. I wanted to blame. Well, there was no way that I could move forward as a businesswoman if I was going to constantly blame some external force for the fact that a business that I'd created hadn't succeeded. I then had to say, okay, what is it about me that has stopped that from happening? And take responsibility for the fact that I wasn't able to put everything that I was into it because I wanted to be with my children. So therefore, there's no one to blame. It's me, but I'm blaming myself because of my values, and I'm happy with that. So taking personal responsibility for where you are in life and what's happened is the first road to then saying, what am I going to do with it going forward into the future? And I did need to skill up. I needed to see a psychologist. I needed to calm certain aspects of my ambition down. I needed to really understand what my capabilities were and what I was willing to sacrifice in life if I was going to go down the path of creating a huge business again. And for me, I chose to step away from that ambition of creating something enormous again, to actually where I am most happy is where I'm with a small group of people, directly supporting them and loving them and having a community that I can nurture and hopefully nurture forever. You know, if I don't nurture it well enough, then some people might leave that, but they might leave. But at the moment, I've got a lovely set of clients. I've got about 30 mastermind clients that go to our mastermind, and so far we've got 21 clients in BIP 100. I've got 50 clients, all mature, lovely people who know all my flaws, who know who I am, who know the journey, who will allow me to support them when they need it, and equally will support each other, and that's super. You know, I don't need to become some notable entrepreneur. That's not important to me. I'm validating myself now.
And that's notable for that group of people. And that's going to create a ripple effect, and they are going to have an effect on 100 each. If you have 100 clients and they have a ripple effect on 100, that's how you become super.
Yeah, and I think, and it's the biggest responsibility Thomas and I have in our business is to find those people, those experts that are willing to be open as well, open to new things, open with themselves, open with their vulnerabilities, you know that their mental well-being is as important as their skills, and it's working, and it's lovely.
Yeah, well, the way you are attracting people who are very much like that. And it's okay to filter and to say, I prefer to work with you because you resonate more with me, and I can this way add more value. Because sometimes we buy into the story of, oh, let's help everybody in the world. But that doesn't work.
And you know, really, you need to be niche. Nowadays, there's so much noise that unless you really do niche down, the message you have to the world, and also the type of client that you feel you can best support, you're just going to join the noise. And so it's a very important business decision as well to decide, what is it, my exact niche, you know, what is my life journey been that allows me then to really support people closely and make a difference to those people. So it's a full circle experience. I can see the little girl in me now, and I can certainly look back to when I was 33 and starting academy, and those early feelings of getting to know the members, and then it just went up like that it just grew too fast and it went out of control, and then you were just running a machine and trying to keep that machine and the climate of that culture of that machine good. And that was hard when you did get the trolls, and you did get, not everybody wants to live their life in a loving way, and that's fine, but it became an uncontrollable thing, and then it's not enjoyable.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
I can see that you're very humble, and you haven't mentioned yet a distinction by the Queen of England, because I'm Spanish. Can you explain that to me, please, as a foreign person?
Oh, your monarchy, they must give out awards, do they?
Yeah, there's the Príncipe de Asturias Awards, and actually Asturias is the region that I am from, so they were given 5 minutes away from where I live, or 10 minutes away from where I live, exactly. In the capital where I was born, actually, where Fernando Alonso is born as well. And they were given there. Yes. So there are these awards, which is slightly different.
The Queen of England for years and years and years, I don't know when they actually started, have been giving out what they call an Order of Merit. So it's something where you're basically recognised for a contribution that you've made to the country or society or something like that. And the Minister for Business in 2013 put me forward for the Queen's January birthday awards. January awards, the New Year's awards they're called. And there are different levels. So there's MBE, Member of the British Empire, OBE, Order of the British Empire, then you've got CBE, Commander of the British Empire, and then you've got your knighthoods. And then you become a Sir or a Lady. So I was awarded the OBE, which is the Order of the British Empire, OBE, in 2014 by the Queen for contribution that we made to entrepreneurship, which was beautiful. And I actually did get to meet the Queen because she's not doing as many things now. And so sometimes it's Prince William, sometimes it's Prince Charles, but I did actually get to shake the Queen's hand, which is very special. Yeah, and get my award, get my medal.
Wow.
Yeah.
You should have worn it today. Would you like to tell us something about your last project to wrap it up?
Well, I think we've talked a bit about it. So my book, Business is Personal, I wrote not as an autobiography, but I wrote it in a very open way, so that because I have a certain image and shiny image in the market, and I think I wanted to say, emotionally and mentally, these things aren't always easy for us, and I wanted to share that, plus some of the tips that we've talked about today. And as a result of writing the book, I had people approach me and ask if I could coach them or support them. So we decided to start mastermind groups, businesses, personal mastermind groups, which met offline. And then in September this year, we launched BIP 100, which is an online community, which I hope we will meet for dinners and things as well. But and it's a group of experts we're looking for, fabulous people who understand what their expertise is, but would like to come into a group and get really well connected into another group of people. And I think the thing with social media is there's a lot of noise. And what Thomas and I are doing is we're sort of curating what we believe are really great people. We spend a lot of time researching, contacting on LinkedIn, setting up Zooms, interviewing them. It sounds a little bit harsh, but we want to talk to people and see if they're right and whether we're right for them. And then they join. So we believe it will take a year to find the 100 people. So we opened in October the 7th, and we've now got 21. So it's averaging about 2 a week at the moment join. Yeah. And we do a different theme every day in the community, which people can join in, from skills to networking to well-being. It's lovely. And the great thing is the members are going to make it what it is. They're special people who, through their own contribution, will make this a very special place as well.
Yeah, my partner Owen is part of this group. He has the honor of having been accepted in this group. He's loving it. There's a lot of value that he's getting from that. There's already some business alliances happening. Yep. He's already adding value to other people. Other people are adding value to him, to us. And they are in the same wavelength as you and Thomas are. So there's so much love, so much wanting of contribution, of making the world a better place, of creating stuff rather than, as you say, there's a lot of noise there. This is a noiseless place, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's a haven that you've created. And for that, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I do this business's personal health check, and it's free, and people take it's 42 yes/no questions, and 63% of people say they are lonely in business, and loneliness in business is very toxic. That it's very, if you're lonely in business, it can really affect your self-worth, your self-esteem. It can stop you from valuing yourself as much as you should. It can make you make wrong decisions. It can stop you from getting the referrals. If you get deeply known, people will pass the right business to you. So loneliness in business is a really serious thing. And I think that's what drives me, is if we can bring the right people in and get that strong sense of belonging, then hopefully none of them would ever feel lonely in business.
Yeah, and that translates to family as well, because we are
absolutely.
one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
That was lovely.
Wow.
Really enjoyed talking to you.
Penny. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I must admit here, and I will say it in front of the camera, that I feel you so powerful. that I've been a bit nervous, which I normally am not. It's not because I don't feel welcome by you. I do. You're like an angel, a light blue angel. But I feel so much power coming from you. That is just amazing. So thank you for that. Thank you for
that's
that.
lovely. Well,
Because
it must be my surname. It must be my name.
that's a superhero name. Penny Power. I mean, starting with the same letter, and the surname is Power. For God's sake, you just need the S here. Actually, I do sleep with Superman t-shirts. I have
very
two,
nice.
and I sleep with them.
Fantastic. Oh, well, you are beautiful. You're a brilliant soul. You're a beautiful soul, Anna. It's lovely to have done this conversation with you. Thank you for helping me to find these words as well, because you don't know what you're going to say. They sort of channel through, don't they? So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. When people want to reach you, Penny, where do we send them to?
So I'm on Twitter at Penny Power, so people can DM me there. I've got my website, pennypower.co.uk. On LinkedIn, I put my WhatsApp number on my LinkedIn profile, so people can send me a message from that. Send me a message through LinkedIn. I don't think if anybody wants to talk to me, I think they'll definitely find the way through. I'm always looking around I'm always keeping an eye on all of my different channels.
And anyone can Google for the book that I so strongly recommend. Even if you're not in business yourself, there are so many keys and powerful lessons here from a down-to-earth woman who's gone through a lot of experiences, and you have translated them into family, into business, into being who we are now, which is a octopus being everywhere.
Oh, thank you,
Penny. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you to you, and to you too, Anna. Thank you very much.